In this video, we're going to be breaking down 3 World Cup 2026 games happening on June 25, 2026, and providing you with picks for all these games. As usual, stick around until the end because you won't want to miss out on anything. Ecuador versus Germany. This might be the single most dangerous kind of game in a World Cup, and here's why. Ecuador come into this final group stage match against Germany sitting at the bottom of Group E with a record of 0-1-1, 0 goals to their name, and their entire tournament survival on the line. A loss or a draw almost certainly sends them packing. And if you think that means a desperate, shriveled-up team is going to roll over and accept its fate, you haven't been paying attention to what Ecuador has actually done on the field. Because behind the scoreboard, the real story is a team that's been creating high-quality chances at an absurd rate and simply has not been rewarded by the soccer gods. Against Curaçao, Ecuador launched 27 shots, put 15 of them on target, generated an expected goals total north of 3, and still walked away with nothing because 37-year-old Eloy Room turned in a 15-save masterclass that tied the all-time World Cup record. That's not a team that can't play, that's a team that can't finish, and there's a massive difference. Against Ivory Coast in the opener, the story was similar. Ecuador struck the crossbar 3 times in a match where they controlled much of the play, only to concede a 90-minute heartbreaker from Amad Diallo. This group carries genuine European caliber through its spine. Moises Caicedo, the Chelsea midfielder who was the most expensive signing in the club's history, anchors everything in the middle of the park and led the entire CONMEBOL qualification in assists. Willian Pacho is a 2-time Champions League winner with Paris Saint-Germain and one of the best center-backs on the planet right now. Piero Hincapié plays for Arsenal and just contested that same Champions League final from the other side. These are not fringe players hoping for a miracle. Now look at what they're running into. Germany has already clinched the top spot in Group E with 6 points from 6, and Julian Nagelsmann has said publicly that he can afford to rest players and experiment. The Who Scored statistical preview confirmed that Nagelsmann could change all 11 of his starters from the Ivory Coast win. Nico Schlotterbeck, who was one of the first names on the team sheet and scored a header in the Curaçao rout, is out for the rest of the tournament with medial ligament damage in his left ankle sustained against Ivory Coast. That's not a small loss either. Nagelsmann himself said the team will miss Schlotterbeck's playmaking from defense. The backline Germany sends out at MetLife Stadium could feature players like Malik Thiaw, who has only 5 senior international caps, alongside more established names, but that defensive unit will not have the cohesion of the first-choice pairing. And honestly, think about this for a second. Both Curaçao and Ivory Coast scored against Germany's full-strength lineup. Curaçao, a country with 158,000 people making their World Cup debut, found the net through Livano Caminência in the first game. Ivory Coast went ahead through Frank Kessie and held the lead for 38 minutes before Deniz Undav rescued Germany. If those two teams could put the ball past Manuel Neuer, there's every reason to believe that a desperately motivated Ecuador side, carrying the kind of individual talent that can unlock any defense on the right day, will find a way through a reshuffled German backline. The other half of the equation is even more straightforward. Germany have scored 9 goals in 2 matches. Even if Nagelsmann rests Havertz, Musiala, and the first-choice midfield, his bench options include the likes of Undav, Leveling, Goretzka, and Amiri, all of whom have already made meaningful contributions at this tournament. A rotated Germany is still one of the most talented attacking groups in the competition. Ecuador came into this World Cup riding a 19-game unbeaten streak that included a 1-0 victory over Argentina in their final qualifier and draws against Brazil and Colombia. That run didn't die because of a lack of quality, it died because of a 90-minute sucker punch from Ivory Coast. This is a team that conceded only 5 goals in 18 CONMEBOL qualifiers and kept 13 clean sheets, second to nobody in the hemisphere on that front. They know how to create, they know how to compete, and now they have nothing left to lose. When a squad this talented faces elimination with its back against the wall, the finishing that abandoned them against Curaçao and Ivory Coast has a way of finally arriving. Both teams to score is our first pick for this matchup. MetLife Stadium sits out in the open air in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and the forecast for Thursday afternoon calls for temperatures right around 82 degrees with mostly clear skies and only a mild chance of any precipitation. Those are ideal conditions for an attacking, up-tempo match, and the tactical setup of this game practically guarantees we're going to get one. Germany have been an absolute machine going forward at this tournament. 5 different players found the net in the 7-1 demolition of Curaçao, with Felix Meka curling in a beautiful opener, Kai Havertz bagging a brace, Jamal Musiala finishing from a tight angle, and Nathaniel Brown marking his World Cup debut with a composed volley. Then, against Ivory Coast, the spotlight shifted to Deniz Undav. The VfB Stuttgart forward came off the bench in the 69th minute and changed the entire trajectory of the match, volleying home an equalizer from Nadim Amiri's cross before spinning on a Namika through ball in the 94th minute to steal the win. In just 56 minutes of World Cup football, Undav has racked up 5 goal contributions, 3 goals and 2 assists, making him the joint top scorer at the tournament. The Opta analyst noted he is the first Germany player to score in each of his first 2 World Cup appearances since Miroslav Klose in 2002, and his 5 goal contributions as a substitute match the joint most by any player at a single World Cup since 1966. Now here's why that matters beyond just Germany's own numbers. Ecuador must win this game. A draw is essentially worthless. That means Sebastian Becasese cannot sit back and absorb pressure the way his team might prefer. He's going to have to push his wingbacks higher, commit more bodies forward, and take risks that Ecuador simply didn't need to take against Curaçao or even Ivory Coast. And against a German side that has proven lethal on the counter, even with rotated personnel, that kind of open, stretched-out match creates space for goals at both ends. Northeastern University's Netsai Sport Research Group ran the data on Ecuador's first 2 games and found that despite their 0 goals, Ecuador's cumulative expected goals total was over 6 across both matches, a figure that dwarfed their opponents' combined output. The Curaçao match alone produced 18 shots on target between the 2 teams, the highest total in any World Cup match since 1966 without a single goal being scored. That kind of shot volume and chance creation cannot stay scoreless forever, and when the dam breaks, it tends to break wide open. Germany's own games paint a clear picture. The Curaçao result was 8 goals combined. The Ivory Coast match produced 3. Both comfortably cleared what we're looking at here. And that was with Germany playing their starters in controlled settings. Today, with a rotated squad that might lack some defensive discipline but is still packed with attacking talent, and an Ecuador side that has to throw caution to the wind just to stay alive, you've got the ingredients for an open, back-and-forth contest where neither team can afford to sit on a lead. Add in the fact that Ecuador hit the woodwork 4 combined times across their first 2 games, and the sheer volume of near misses suggests that on another day, several of those find the net. This is that other day, or at least it has every reason to be. Game total over 2.5 goals is our second pick for this matchup. Quick commercial break. You know the deal. If you want to get our exclusive best sport picks to take things to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Go check it out. Commercial break over. Now back to the game. Japan versus Sweden. There's something about this particular Group F finale that feels like a trap for anyone betting on a clean sheet, and that's exactly where we need to start. Japan come into this match with a record of 1 win and 1 draw, sitting on 4 points, and their path to the knockout stage looks pretty straightforward. A draw gets it done. But here's the thing, just because they can afford to play conservative doesn't mean they will. Hajime Moriyasu's squad has shown a very specific temperament throughout this tournament, and it's not one that involves sitting back and waiting for the whistle. Against the Netherlands in this same building 10 days ago, Japan fell behind twice and clawed their way back both times, with Daichi Kamada heading in an equalizer in the 89th minute to rescue a share of the spoils. That wasn't lucky, that was a team with belief. Then they traveled to Monterrey and dismantled Tunisia 4-0, becoming the first team representing the Asian Football Confederation to score 4 goals in a single World Cup match. So this is a side that attacks with real intent regardless of the scoreboard, and against a Swedish team that quite literally has to win or go home. The conditions for both sides finding the net feel almost guaranteed. Sweden's desperation is the engine driving this entire matchup. Graham Potter knows his team sits 3rd in Group F on 3 points, and nothing short of a victory will keep their World Cup alive. That means Sweden can't afford to play the kind of cautious mid-block shape that might slow the game down. They have to push numbers forward, stretch the field, and commit bodies into advanced positions. And when you do that against a team as clinical in transition as Japan, you leave doors open behind you. That's exactly what happened against the Netherlands, where Sweden were carved apart 5-1. But even in that demolition, Anthony Elanga still scored for Sweden in the 59th minute, a goal on the counter that proved this team doesn't go quietly even when things spiral. Now flip the context. Potter watched his backline get exposed by the Dutch, and he's had 5 days to address it, but no amount of tactical tweaking changes the fundamental equation here. Sweden must chase the game, and chasing the game against Japan is dangerous business. Japan's Feyenoord striker Ayaseguera already has 2 goals in the tournament after that brace against Tunisia, where he finished the Eredivisie season as the league's top scorer with 25 goals. Kamada, the Crystal Palace midfielder, has 2 goals of his own and seems to show up in exactly the right spots at exactly the right time. Even without Takefusa Kubo, who's been officially ruled out with the knee injury he picked up in the Netherlands game, Japan's depth in attack hasn't missed a beat. Junya Ito stepped in and scored against Tunisia, Kato Nakamura found the net against the Netherlands, and every time one piece is missing, another one fills the void. That kind of squad depth makes a shutout feel extremely unlikely. On Sweden's end, the combination of Alexander Isak and Viktor Gyökeres up top is legitimately terrifying. These two aren't just Premier League forwards, they're the kind of players who shift a game's entire gravity just by being on the pitch. Isak orchestrated Sweden's attack against Tunisia with a goal and 2 assists, while Gyökeres scored the clinching third to put the match out of reach. Yasin Ayri, the Brighton midfielder who spent most of his domestic season quietly evolving into one of the most underrated box-to-box players in England, hit a brace against Tunisia with 2 absolute rockets from distance. Sweden can score, and they will be throwing everything they have at Japan's back 3. Japan's defense has been excellent, 2 goals conceded in 2 matches, but they haven't yet faced a team with this much individual attacking talent while under no pressure to protect a result. The dynamic here, with Sweden pushing and Japan willing to engage rather than park the bus, points heavily toward both sides putting the ball in the net. Both teams to score is our first pick for this matchup. Group F has been a goal factory since the opening whistle, and nothing about this final matchday suggests the production line is slowing down. 20 goals in 4 matches across this group. That's a 5-goal per game average, which is absurd by World Cup standards. The Netherlands and Japan produced 4 goals in their opener. Sweden and Tunisia combined for 6. The Netherlands and Sweden combined for 6 more. Japan and Tunisia added another 4. Every single match in this group has cleared the total we're looking at here, and the conditions for this finale are if anything more favorable for goals than any of the previous fixtures. Here's why that matters so much. The tactical setup of this game is almost uniquely designed to produce an open, end-to-end contest. Sweden need 3 points. That's not a preference, it's a mathematical reality. They can't sit in a low block and hope for a 1-0 grind, because a draw is as bad as a loss for Potter's side. So Sweden will press, commit wingbacks forward, and leave acres of space in behind, which is precisely the kind of environment where Japan thrive. Moriyasu's team has shown all tournament long that they are at their most dangerous when given room to run into, and a Swedish defense that surrendered 5 goals to the Netherlands just 5 days ago is hardly a fortress. The venue itself plays into the narrative too. This stadium in Arlington is an enclosed, climate-controlled environment with a retractable roof that's been closed for the group stage matches, creating a fast, true surface and a cauldron-like atmosphere. This isn't some wind-swept pitch in Northern Europe where the ball dies in the grass and everyone grinds out a scoreless first half. The pace of play in this building has been relentless, and when you put 2 teams with this much attacking quality on a surface like that, under stakes this high, goals tend to follow. Japan's last competitive defeat came more than a year ago, and their recent run of form, which includes victories over England at Wembley and a convincing 3-0 win over Bolivia late last year, tells you everything about the confidence flowing through this squad. They don't just defend leads, they hunt for more. Against Tunisia, they were already up 2-0 and still pressed for a 3rd and 4th, never once easing off the throttle. That mentality matters when you're projecting how many times the ball is going to cross the goal line. A team willing to keep attacking even with qualification in hand is a team likely to contribute to a high-scoring affair. And then there's the Sweden factor that doesn't get enough attention. This squad qualified for the World Cup without winning a single match in their qualifying group. They came through the UEFA playoff route, beating Ukraine 3-1 and Poland 3-2, with Gyökeres scoring the decisive winner in the 88th minute of that final. This is a team that has lived on the edge for months, and they've never once shown an interest in pragmatism. Potter's side plays with a certain wildness, a willingness to trade blows rather than suffocate the game, and that stylistic identity points toward an open contest where chances are created at both ends. The 5-1 win over Tunisia wasn't built on possession dominance and patient build-up. Sweden's expected goals for that match was just 1.36, meaning they were lethal on a relatively small number of chances. That finishing efficiency, combined with the volume of chances Japan's press tends to creates a perfect storm for a match that sails over the projected total without much drama. Leeds United's Ao Tanaka and Crystal Palace's Kaishu Sano anchor Japan's midfield, and both have shown the ability to win the ball in transition and immediately release runners into space. That transition speed was the defining feature of the Tunisia win, where Japan turned defensive recoveries into dangerous attacks within seconds. Sweden's defense, led by Aston Villa's Victor Lindelof at the back, has the quality to organize, but organization only matters when you have the numbers to defend, and Sweden won't have those numbers tonight because they can't afford to. The gap between their attacking intent and their defensive coverage is where the goals live, and there should be plenty of them. Game total over 2.5 goals is our second pick for this matchup. Paraguay versus Australia. People love to sleep on the Socceroos, and honestly, I kind of get why. On paper, this is Paraguay's World Cup reunion tour, their first time on this stage since South Africa 2010, and there's a romantic pull toward the scrappy underdog fighting to extend their stay in North America. But romance and good betting picks don't always walk hand in hand, and if you look past the narrative and into the structure of this game, you start to see something the market might be slightly mispricing. Australia sit on 3 points, same as Paraguay, but the Socceroos own the superior goal difference, which means a draw alone punches their ticket to the round of 32. Paraguay, on the other hand, needs a win to guarantee their advancement, and that creates a fascinating tactical asymmetry at Levi's Stadium tonight. Here's the thing, Tony Popovic's squad has won 7 of their last 10 games and suffered only 2 defeats across their past 15 outings. A stretch of form that quietly puts them among the most consistent teams at this entire tournament. And they're ranked 27th in the world, a full 14 spots above Paraguay's 41st, which makes the fact that the Socceroos are listed as underdogs on the money line a little puzzling if you think about it. Paraguay earned their spot here through CONMEBOL qualifying, and they deserve credit for knocking off both Argentina and Brazil during that grueling 18-game marathon. Those were legitimate scalps, no question. But tonight they walk into Santa Clara without Miguel Almiron, the most creative midfielder on their entire roster, who's suspended after becoming the first player in World Cup history sent off under the new mouth covering rule during the Turkey match. Almiron was the player who connected Paraguay's deep defensive shape to their forward line, the guy whose movement between the lines gave them a transition threat even when they were sitting on 22% possession. Without him, Gustavo Alfaro has to reconstruct his entire attacking blueprint, and that's a massive ask against a side as defensively organized as Australia. Think about what happened to Turkey in Australia's opener. They controlled 71% of possession, fired 30 shots at goal, and still walked away with 0 goals to show for it because the Socceroos just refused to break. Patrick Beach, the 22-year-old keeper from Melbourne City who nobody expected to start, made 8 saves that night and produced what's already being called one of the best goalkeeping debuts in World Cup history. That defensive identity isn't an accident, it's baked into Popovic's entire system. Australia absorb pressure, stay compact, and then release Nestori Irankunda on the counter. And the Watford forward's pace is the kind of weapon that punishes teams who push too many bodies forward. Paraguay will have to attack tonight. Their goal difference of -2 compared to Australia's even leaves them no choice, and every time they commit numbers forward, they expose space behind that Popovic side has shown it knows exactly how to exploit. 5 times these two nations have met at the senior level, all friendlies, and Paraguay has never won a single one of them, 0 victories in 5 attempts, with Australia claiming 2 wins and 3 draws across the series. That's not a trend you ignore. Australia draw no bet is our first pick for this matchup. Paraguay's defensive DNA is genuinely remarkable, and if you only look at the scorelines from CONMEBOL qualifying, you might wonder how they ever lost a game. 10 goals conceded across 18 matches, that's not a typo. Roughly 1 goal allowed every 2 games against a gauntlet of South American talent that included Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, and Colombia. Gustavo Alfaro built this team from the back, and when that defensive structure is set, it takes something special to crack it. Australia, meanwhile, have shown a similar appetite for keeping things tight under Popovic, whose system revolves around a compact block that makes opponents work for every half chance. 3 of the 5 all-time meetings between these sides produced 1 goal or fewer, and their most recent encounter back in 2010 ended 1-0. In fact, when you zoom out and look at the broader patterns in this group, the scorelines are telling. Australia's tournament games finished 2-0 and 0-2, both of them clean sheet results for one side, while Paraguay's games went 1-4 and 1-0. Take away the USA opener, where the hosts blitzed La Albiroja early and the game spiraled, and Paraguay's true output in this tournament is that gritty 1-0 result against Turkey, where they generated an expected goals figure of just 0.32 from 7 shots. Paraguay managed only 14 total goals across those 18 CONMEBOL qualifying matches, and more than a third of them, 5 out of 14 to be exact, came from set pieces. That tells you this is a team that doesn't create volumes of open play chances. They grind out moments from dead ball situations, which is inherently a low-frequency scoring method. Now consider the personnel situation. Paraguay's most dangerous creative outlet is unavailable tonight, and the burden of chance creation falls on Julio Encaso and a midfield that will need to reinvent its passing lanes on the fly. On Australia's side, Popovic has the luxury of knowing a point is almost certainly enough, which gives him zero incentive to open the game up and chase a second or third goal if his side gets ahead. Sure, 4 of Australia's last 5 games have produced 2 or more goals, and that's a legitimate counterpoint worth acknowledging. But most of those came against opponents who were either weak enough to concede freely or strong enough to force the issue themselves. Tonight's dynamic is different. Both teams have every reason to stay cagey. Paraguay because they can't afford to get caught on the break chasing the game recklessly, and Australia because a draw is perfectly fine for them. The weather at Levi's Stadium is set for a mild, clear evening with temperatures dipping into the mid-60s and northwest winds around 10 to 15 miles per hour. Nothing that forces the pace or changes the way either team wants to play. When two defensively disciplined sides meet in a game where the stakes actually encourage caution rather than chaos, you get the kind of match where one set piece or one counterattack decides everything. Game total under 2 goals is our second pick for this matchup. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.